Welcome back to the Chattable Podcast, where enrich vocabulary and speak English with pride.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Of course. So, to start us off today, have you ever felt like the literal panic of a runner's footsteps pounding the pavement right behind you in a race?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is a terrifying feeling.
Right. Or maybe you've experienced that sudden, terrifying realization that your feet can no longer touch the bottom of a swimming pool.
Definitely. I mean, those are incredibly visceral physical moments, They're completely universal.
Exactly. And today, we are exploring the reality behind two very common English phrases that capture those exact feelings of stress and panic.
Yeah, because this episode is really about moving beyond textbook translations. To sound truly natural and fluent in English, you really have to understand specific physical sensations and the underlying emotional vibes that these idioms carry.
Right. We want to know exactly when to drop these phrases perfectly into a conversation. And just as importantly, we want to know when to completely avoid them. Because as you navigate your journey of learning English, you quickly realize that native speakers rarely just say, "I am stressed."
Yeah, they use powerful imagery instead. They paint a picture of their anxiety.
Right, they really do.
And taking the time to slowly understand the nuances of that imagery is what elevates your language skills. It takes you from simply transferring words to actually transferring human experience.
I love that. So let's step right into the imagery. Our first phrase drops us straight into the kitchen of competition.
Okay, I'm ready.
The idiom is feeling the heat. Now, at a basic dictionary level, this just means experiencing intense pressure. But the vibe is highly specific. It is not just about having a difficult day, it's about a competitor catching up to you or a severe deadline closing in.
Yeah, to truly grasp the emotion here, you have to imagine the physical origin of the phrase.
Okay, paint that picture for us.
Well, picture yourself standing entirely too close to a massive roaring bonfire.
Oh, yeah, that gets uncomfortable fast.
Exactly. Or even better, imagine working the line in a cramped, poorly ventilated restaurant kitchen during the Friday night dinner rush.
Oh, wow. That sounds awful.
Right. The air is thick. You are sweating. It is overwhelmingly uncomfortable, and the temperature just keeps rising.
It's an environment that literally forces a reaction out of you.
It does. And it actually gave birth to a very famous English saying you might have heard, "If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen."
Yes. Which implies that the environment itself is hostile and demanding.
Exactly. Meaning, if the intense pressure of the competition is simply too much for your system to handle, you should step aside and let someone else cook.
Got it. The situation is literally raising your body temperature.
Yeah, and that rising temperature implies an external threat. This is a crucial point for anyone listening and wanting to use this phrase accurately.
Okay, let's make sure we are clear on this.
You are not generating the heat yourself. It is an outside force, a person, a company, a ticking clock that is pushing you out of your comfort zone.
So let's look at how that external threat plays out in the real world.
Let's do it.
The source material brings up a massive example from the business world. Think back over a decade ago in the United States airline industry.
Oh, right.
The major legacy carriers were very comfortable, their pricing models were set, the market felt stable, and they were essentially doing business as usual. Then a company called Spirit Airlines aggressively entered the market, and they disrupted the entire industry by offering $50 airfares.
Right, so the legacy carriers were suddenly scrambling. They had to completely reevaluate their business models because a rival was fundamentally undercutting their prices.
Yeah, the temperature in their corporate boardrooms definitely skyrocketed.
They were forced to react because they were feeling the heat. They had to change their strategy, not because they wanted to, but because Spirit Airlines turned up the thermostat on the entire industry.
Exactly. But we see this exact same dynamic on an everyday scale, too.
Yeah, we really do.
The outline gives us the example of Sarah. Let's imagine Sarah is a senior video editor at a top advertising firm.
Okay.
She has been there for years, she knows the clients, and she is very comfortable with her workflow. Then management hires a brand new 22-year-old employee.
Uh-oh.
Right. And this new hire comes in using brand new software shortcuts and just starts cutting commercial videos in half the time it takes Sarah.
Wow.
Yeah, and Sarah hears the boss openly praising the new kid's incredible speed.
Suddenly, Sarah is sweating. She is feeling the heat at work. She is worried about her own performance reviews,
Exactly.
She is feeling uncomfortable stress strictly because someone else has entered her space and set a much faster pace.
Thinking about Sarah and those airlines, it brings me back to that analogy of the runner I mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
It feels exactly like you are running a race. You are in first place. You're cruising along at a comfortable speed, and then out of nowhere, you hear the loud, fast crunch of track spikes right behind your shoulder.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. You can hear another runner breathing heavily. You know they are inches away from passing you.
That is the perfect psychological equivalent. It is the adrenaline spike of the footsteps behind you. It is a highly intense, highly competitive vibe.
Yeah.
You are being pushed to sprint faster, whether your legs want to or not.
That makes the emotion of the phrase crystal clear. It is external competitive panic.
Exactly.
So let's establish the rules for our listeners. When does this phrase completely fail? Like, if I am walking outside in the middle of July and it is 100 degrees, am I feeling the heat?
Well, you are, but entirely literally, and that is the first major rule. Do not use this idiom to describe general warm weather.
Got it.
If you say, wow, I am really feeling the heat today, while just standing in the sun, native speakers will assume you're just talking about the actual weather. The idiom requires metaphorical pressure.
Literal weather versus metaphorical stress. That makes sense. What about positive stress?
What do you mean?
Let's say I am planning a massive, expensive wedding. I am stressed. There are a million details, but I am ultimately thrilled about it. Am I feeling the heat?
No, and using it in that context would sound very strange to a native ear.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Feeling the heat strictly implies negative, uncomfortable, or threatening pressure.
I see.
If you are stressed but excited about a positive life milestone, this idiom sounds completely out of place. It implies you are being hunted or driven against your will.
So it has to have that competitive edge.
Exactly.
But what happens if you cannot outrun those footsteps?
Yeah.
Let's say the heat gets to you. You panic.
Okay.
You decide to take on a massive new project just to prove your worth and stay ahead of the competition.
Right.
You run faster than you ever have, but suddenly you realize you have sprinted right off the edge of the map. You are no longer in a hot, competitive kitchen. You are in deep water.
You find yourself over your head. The imagery shifts entirely, and so does the type of stress.
This is a wonderfully visual idiom. Walk us through the physical sensation it describes. We went from standing near a fire to standing in water.
Yeah, so picture yourself wading into the ocean.
Okay.
If the water is at your knees, you are perfectly safe, you can move easily, and you are entirely in control.
Right.
Even if the water reaches your chest, your feet are firmly planted on the sand. You can still breathe. But take one more step forward into a drop-off, and the water goes over your head.
The floor completely disappears.
Exactly. Your toes can no longer touch the ground. If you do not know how to tread water, you are in immediate life-threatening danger.
Wow.
So in a metaphorical sense, you are completely submerged by your responsibilities. You are drowning in a situation, and you have lost all control.
The panic here feels fundamentally different than feeling the heat.
It really is.
It is no longer about a competitor catching up to you. It is the silent, internal, terrifying realization that you simply lack the skills or the capacity to survive the environment you have placed yourself in.
It is an incredibly isolating feeling, and the sources for this episode provide a fascinating historical example of someone who practically lived in this state.
Oh, who is that?
Ted Turner, the legendary creator of the CNN News Network.
Ah, yes. The outline mentions that his father actually inspired him to set unachievable goals.
Yeah. By design, his father taught him to aim for things that were fundamentally impossible to reach.
That sounds exhausting.
Right. Because of this deeply ingrained philosophy, Ted Turner was constantly taking on ventures that were simply too massive for one person to comfortably handle.
Like starting CNN.
Exactly. Launching a 24-hour cable news network at a time when the entire industry thought the concept was a joke meant he was operating without a safety net.
Wow.
He was constantly over his head, both at work and in his personal life.
He was willingly jumping into the deep end of the ocean, drowning in the logistics, the finances, and the sheer scale of his own vision.
He really was.
but we do not have to be billionaire media moguls to experience this, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at an everyday example. The sources introduce us to Carlos.
Oh, Carlos, yeah. So Carlos wants to save some money, so he decides he is going to fix his own car engine.
Right. And Carlos does not just do a simple oil change.
No, he doesn't.
He decides to bypass the instruction manual entirely and just starts unbolting things. Fast forward 6 hours, Carlos is covered in black grease.
Oh, no.
There are 70 completely unrecognizable metal parts spread across his driveway. The sun is going down.
That is a nightmare.
He does not even know what the parts are called, let alone the sequence required to put them back into the vehicle.
Carlos is profoundly over his head.
He really is.
He is drowning in car parts. He has ventured so far out into the water that his feet have left the sand. He lacks the mechanical skills and the technical knowledge to handle the crisis he has engineered for himself.
But wait, let me pause you right there.
Sure.
Because I wanted to find the exact boundary of this phrase for everyone listening. In modern life, we are all overwhelmed. Hustle culture demands that we take on more than we should.
Oh, absolutely.
If I look at my calendar and I am booked solid with meetings from 8 in the morning until 6 at night, and I am buried in emails, am I over my head or just a victim of a heavy schedule?
That is a great question.
Where is the line between being incredibly busy and being in deep water?
That is a highly perceptive distinction to make. The line is defined by the fear of absolute failure, not just the volume of your tasks.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
Let's use the water metaphor again. If you have 10 massive projects on your desk, but you possess the exact skills required to complete every single one of them, you just happen to lack the hours in the day, you're just wading through heavy water.
So I can still touch the bottom of the pool.
Yes, you can still touch the bottom. It is exhausting, certainly. You might have to work late into the night, but you have the capability. You are not drowning.
Okay, I see the difference.
However, if you have only one single project on your desk, but it requires you to code in a software language you have never seen before, and failing means you will lose your job, then you are over your head.
The water is above my nose.
It is a profound lack of capacity accompanied by a real risk of sinking. It is an overwhelming, risky vibe where failure is a very real possibility. It is about capability, not just scheduling.
That makes so much sense. It is the difference between running out of time and running out of ability.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up our analysis of this phrase, there is a very specific alternative way people use these exact words, right?
There is, yeah.
Sometimes you will hear someone say that a joke went over someone's head.
Yes, and you have to be extremely careful with that specific variation.
Why is that?
Well, if you are at a dinner party and you say that a joke or a complex intellectual topic went over his head, you are changing the imagery entirely.
Yeah.
You are implying that the concept literally flew through the air high above the person's brain.
Which means they did not catch it.
Exactly. It implies they were not smart enough or perhaps not culturally aware enough to understand the punchline.
Oh, wow. That can sound incredibly condescending if you use it in the wrong company.
Very much so. It can easily be interpreted as mean or insulting. It is a completely different application of the words.
That is really good to know.
Yeah, when you are learning to use this idiom, it is much safer to keep the focus entirely on your own workload, your own stress, and your own feeling of being submerged, rather than using it to critique someone else's intelligence.
So, to summarize the journey we have taken in this episode today, we are really looking at two distinctly different environments of stress. Two very different vibes.
Feeling the heat is fundamentally external. It is about intense competitive pressure coming from the outside world.
You are in a race, you hear the footsteps catching up, you are standing in a hot kitchen, and the environment is forcing you to react.
Right, whereas being over one's head is fundamentally internal. It is that quiet, isolating, internal realization that you have waded out too far. You are submerged, and the task at hand is entirely beyond your current capabilities.
As you continue to study English, navigate your career, or manage your university studies, being able to recognize the difference between these two physical feelings is essentially a superpower.
It really is.
It dictates your survival strategy. If you realize you are just feeling the heat, maybe the solution is to dig deep, find your competitive spirit, and run a little faster to stay ahead of the new hire.
But if you realize you are truly over your head, that is a severe warning siren.
Yeah.
It tells you that your feet cannot touch the bottom. Pushing harder will not save you if you do not know how to swim.
So true.
That is the exact moment you need to stop, drop your ego, and ask a colleague or a teacher for a lifeline before you go under.
It is a signal to ask for help. But, before we say goodbye today, it is worth looking back at the sources one last time.
Oh.
We treat being over your head as a purely negative, terrifying state of being. But think back to Ted Turner.
Oh, right. He deliberately set those impossible goals.
He forced himself into deep water over and over again across his entire career.
Which raises a genuinely provocative question about human psychology, I think.
What do you mean?
Well, we spend so much of our energy trying to stay safe, trying to stay in the shallow water where our feet can comfortably touch the sand.
Wow.
Is it possible that occasionally, intentionally putting yourself over your head is the only true way to finally learn how to swim in the deep end of life?
Wow. I love that. Maybe that terrifying deep water is where all the actual growth happens.
Exactly.
Assuming you do not panic, of course.
Yeah, don't panic.
It is certainly something for all of us to ponder the next time we feel the metaphorical water rising around us. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode today. We hope you enjoyed exploring the psychology and the physical origins behind these phrases. Keep practicing, keep challenging yourself, and keep speaking English with pride. We will see you next time.